So I don't know how many of you are aware, but Elisa did resign her position as chair today. And I don't know if Mei Ling saw that or not. There were some emails that started earlier in the day, and she decided that it just is not the right thing for her right now. And so she has stepped down from her role as chair. Some of you may or may not know, she became the chair the middle of last year when the chair resigned then because of personal family issues. And so then Elisa stepped into that role and managed that role during the course of all last year. And then here in January, we voted her in along with Mei Ling and as the chair and vice chair. And so Jody is traveling, so he's not able to be with us. But Jessica McMullen is on here as well. And so with her stepping down, that means Mei Ling is slated to move into the chair position. And so we have somewhat of a light agenda today, which I'll put up here in a few minutes. But before I do that, I just wanted to mention that. And, Mei Ling, if you are, up for, taking that role on, we can kind of co-host the rest of the meeting today. But you can also, think about that over the next, month between now and when the executive committee meets. But that is kind of where we are at. So with that, go ahead, Dave.
Do we have a quorum?
So I think we're close. We need 5. And so we have you, Mei Ling, Paula, Dayton, Leilani, and Debbie. So there are 6 of you. So there is a quorum here today. Oh, and Amy Mitchell. I knew I saw Amy earlier, and now she's back in front of me again. So we do have a quorum. So that's a good thing as well.
Is there a vote or anything you need on our part?
No, because normally, if the chair steps down, that's why we have a vice chair. Some committees actually have second vice chairs. We do not have a second vice chair with the Commission on Aging because that wasn't something that we have. And so our executive committee will be talking about that at our next meeting. And if anybody wants to come to that meeting, you're welcome to. I will remind everybody at the end when that's happening. That's where I'm at. And so with Mei Ling agreeing to take on and move into that chair role, at least for this meeting for sure, possibly ongoing. Again, there's no need to vote, but I just want Mei Ling to know that, things may happen. And so with that, I'm going to pop the agenda up so that people can see it. And then I'm going to let Mei Ling hopefully take it from there. So give me a second to pull that up.
So while Melissa is popping that up, I will first say I would appreciate grace with my first time stepping up to the plate. I really appreciate the mentorship that I've been able to stand in. I will be relying on Melissa to help me work through some of the legalities here, but Melissa, do I call it to order at 3:07? Or did you already call it to order?
I didn't call it to order, so I think go ahead and call it to order. And yeah.
Okay, perfect. And do we have any public comment?
There are no public comments at this time.
I think we have to go through the agenda and the minutes first, I believe.
Oh, there you go.
See?
Yep.
Perfect. So can I get an approval of, do I get approval of the agenda first, Melissa?
Yes. Yep. Anybody have any changes to make or If the agenda is fine as stands, if there's a motion to approve the agenda,
I move to approve the agenda as it stands.
and that was Debbie.
Second.
That's Debbie.
And then Dayton second.
Yes.
Great. And then with the minutes, sorry, Mei-Ling, I'm just kind of talking through this.
I have one
Um,
change, one recommended change, I think on the second page of the minutes, paragraph 5D. It says the purpose of the council is to advise. It really should be commission, I believe.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
I'm back to the agenda. I'm sorry, I just noticed that it said Jody was going to be present to discuss PPACG board items, and he is not going to be at the meeting, so we could scratch that agenda item.
Okay. So then we're circling back, taking Jody off the agenda for PPACG board items. And so do we have a motion to approve the agenda with that taken off?
I so move, I move,
I second, Paula.
Thank you, Paula. Thanks, Dave. Okay,
and I move we make, we approve the minutes with that one change.
and is there a second?
I would kind of bring attention to the minutes as well, related to I think it says appointment of me, and I was just kind of curious on like the title. It says community engagement or something along those lines. Let me find where I'm looking.
You're mentioned in 5A.
Yeah, our 4A in the action items, appointment, new member, Dayton Romero, community engagement and advocacy. I don't know if that was supposed to reflect my job title or
It is. So tell us officially, Dayton.
officially the revision would be Director of Healthcare Strategy and Integration.
Healthcare,
Strategy and Integration.
great. Okay. So then circling back with those two changes being made, council to commission. Dayton's title, Director of Healthcare Strategy and Integration. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so
I
move with the recommended changes.
I second.
And
This is
that would be Debbie again. Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Perfect.
And so with that, Mei-Ling, you can make an effort of going through a couple of other things, and we'll help you out as you need it.
Okay, thank you so much. So are we, so we have no community presentations. Do we have action items at this time, Alyssa?
None?
Okay, so we are on 5 information items, membership committee. Paula, did you have anything that you would like to provide?
I believe we were approaching Mary Duran, who is now with UC Health in senior education. I'm not sure where that application stands right now, but I will reach out again and see if we can't set up an interview with that. Get that interview in place. I will be out of town all next week, but I'll see if we can't get something by the end of this week. If not, we'll push it to the end of March.
Hey,
And
Paula, I
Paula-
have a question.
Yes.
What kind of members do we need? Can you give me a demographic of some kind that we need to be searching for?
Well, just seeing the representation on the commission right now, thinking of what we don't have represented as far as community location, areas represented, populations not represented, just that type of thing. I think anyone engaged in the senior community would be a viable candidate. I don't know if we've thought about having just a community at large person. not necessarily with their hand deep in senior care or the community, but just a community at large person that isn't necessarily tied to a organization or a care community, or, you know, that to me would be a valuable member of the commission. But, you know, if you all have ideas of what we're lacking or who we're not representing, I'd be happy to take those recommendations and see if we can't find, or if you have names of people that you recommend, I'm happy to take those and make that ask.
As well as I will be glad to help out with that since I'm part of that committee.
That'd be great.
Just a couple of thoughts on that from my perspective. I don't know the total number of members that we have. I don't know if we've set sort of how many we're shooting for. If it's 15, 20, I don't know. Numbers are not necessarily important. I like your idea of the at-large. It's almost like an at-large citizen. And I think the other piece would really be to focus on, like our commission is on aging. So it'd be really helpful, I think, to get some aging people on there, such as me.
Right, Dave, I agree with that. So, yeah, go ahead.
I think organizational representation is good, but I really do think that the real key to making this work is probably to get the at-large citizens and probably seniors to say, okay, we hear the organizational pieces, we understand it from their perspective, or from but then you have the community voice that they're hopefully going to be able to represent. That's really key.
I agree with that. And along the lines of not knowing what our capacity is on the commission, I think that lends to possibly going over bylaws of the commission. I don't know how many of you are very familiar with them. I am not. I don't know if there is a review of bylaws as part of a meeting, or having those sent out and then those be part of a discussion item after everyone's reviewed them. But I would personally love to be able to have a chance to review those bylaws, which hopefully state the capacity of the commission. That's just my thoughts.
I think that's a good point. And Melissa, if you could, maybe you could attach that to the minutes of this meeting. Or at
So
least
yeah, I think I'll forward them out
Give us
as
a link
soon
to
as
them.
we're done.
So I agree. I think that it's really important for all of us to have that level set of us being on board with the bylaws. I think it's important for us to all feel up to speed. I do think I agree to a certain extent with Dave, but at the end of the day, we are all aging, whether we're aging at a faster rate. I think it's important for us to bring our expertise, whether it's from within our lived experiences, within our field, within our community engagement. I know that some of the buckets of expertise was specifically on housing accessibility, transportation, and behavioral health. So when we're looking for community members, I think it's important not only for them to be age 65 plus, but to also bring that level of experience within that realm as well. So I think that it's important to have a balanced perspective for sure.
That's why I think it's important to look at the bylaws and figure out how many members we have. Because I think it's a valid point that you just mentioned, Mei-Ling, but I think the other piece is that there has to be that citizen representation, whatever the age.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I want to just have people keep in mind that as those topics that Mei-Ling just discussed, the behavioral health, housing, and transportation, to me, those are universal topics that don't zero in on a specific group, facility, that type of thing. We are commissioned to oversee the community, not necessarily a certain facility. In my experience in long-term care many moons ago, I know for a fact that facilities have resident councils that they can take, the community itself can take their issues to and discuss. I don't think it's our place to micromanage facility requests. To me, we're a universal body that's going to address community as a whole and not go after community specific requests. That to me is part of their resident council. In a dementia setting, there's family council that represents their people. And I think we need to keep our universal focus at priority and not try to go in, take a deeper dive into those thoughts and requests that are just beyond our bandwidth.
I think that sorry, just one quick comment. When we look at the bylaws, I think that will bring a lot of clarity. So I look forward to circling back on this. I know that when the commission was originally created, the purpose of it was to have a pulse on the community and be representing aging issues. So while I do appreciate the buckets to have a certain level of relevance and bandwidth, I think it's also important for us to be an accessible commission that understands the needs of our community and hears the needs of our community. So I think that there is a balance. And I think it's important that when we get the bylaws that we circle back to this as well. Claire, did you want to add something?
Sorry, yeah, if I can just jump in just as a member of the public. Hi, everybody. And only if this is helpful. When we created the Commission on Aging at the city, in the bylaws, we had kind of called out a number of different kind of representation areas that we wanted. And I can't remember off the top of my head if those were copied in the bylaws at PPACG when it was moved over there. But I just as this is helpful, we had said that we were seeking representatives on the commission from the following industries, which were senior serving organizations, transportation, housing, and accessibility. And then we wanted the members of the commission to mirror as much as possible the demographics of the population in Colorado Springs. So like you've been saying, ethnicity, gender, race, age, and geographic location. And we did search for folks from each of the council districts when this was set up at the city and that sort of thing. So I would just suggest, if it's not in your bylaws, and I can't remember, but to, it can be helpful to kind of make a distinction like that, when you're thinking about, potential members.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd like to piggyback on what Paula mentioned. I agree very much with your point of view, Paula. I think the other thing is that while we're focusing, and we've mentioned the bylaws, I think the mission is probably what we need to be thinking about as well, because that really does talk to what you were saying, Paula. It's at that macro level. It says, okay, and we've had that earlier discussion in the previous meeting about, do we worry about the neighborhood Safeway, or do we worry about this issue over here? Versus in the commission really is at that larger, broadly community level, if you will. And this is across 3 counties. It's not a city anymore. That's not the focus. So I think that's, part of it. So when we look at the bylaws, I think maybe a second step would be to look at that mission, maybe simultaneously. I hesitate to offer up too much, but it's too much to chew on all at once. But especially with the change in the chair and the chair, I think it probably behooves us to think about that and say, okay, if not this next meeting, maybe 2 meetings from now. And prior to that, we really want to be able to address those 2 things, because this is a pretty big juncture.
Debbie, I see your hand is up. Thanks, Dave.
This is just a dumb question. And has anyone thought that there may be a conflict of interest if we had more members that were from housing organizations or more members that were from transportation organizations? Would there be a conflict of interest? I mean, those are our issues we want to address this year. We still need those people, but it's one of those things that I'm sure no one would ever abuse that. But I have to admit, does it look, I mean, does it have bad optics, as the old saying goes?
Dayton?
I'm
No,
sorry.
I think just such great conversation being had in terms of kind of, I think of membership committee and identifying key people to be a part of our mission is kind of being a strategic move. So Dave's point and like, what is the overall mission? What is the goal of the group? And being strategic in our recruitment strategy. So saying, okay, well, if our main focuses are here, what are we trying to do within those focuses? And in those domains, if it's transportation, behavioral health, or housing, whatever the case may be, in what angle or perspective of expertise are we looking to bring to the conversation? So are we looking to kind of encapsulate the senior experience as, you know, navigating the bus system? Or are we trying to get kind of the city view of like, this is our the reality of our transit and CDOT's implication and all this stuff? So I think kind of the angle in which we look at these things that we're trying to tackle and our outcomes should drive on who the players around the table could be. So I just want to kind of add those pieces and just kind of revisit the bylaws are so important. And I'd ask for that with Melissa in the chat kind of on a side really early on in this conversation. So I'm right on track with you guys. Thanks.
I feel like a lot of the answers come from the bylaws, Melissa, so I don't know if we want to have a circle back on this next meeting, and then we can just have that sent out to all of the group members. But I also really appreciate, this ties back to Dave's document that we had presented at the beginning of this year, looking at how do we organize ourselves thoughtfully and strategically, and how do we measure success. So Dave, I would love to circle back with you on that conversation if you have bandwidth. But one thing that I think is important is when we look at success, the reason we were developed is to have community engagement. So that in itself is a marker of success, is raising awareness on these issues. So I think that we need to be really thoughtful in the fact that we are creating a forum. And I think that us understanding our bandwidth within that is important, but I think that we shouldn't hold ourselves necessarily to a certain level of, okay, we had a meeting on, you know, a Safeway, and then 3 months later there was a Safeway. It's more that we had a meeting on a Safeway, and now we understand that there is a need for food access in this area, and what can we do to support that within our organizations or within this forum. So I think that community engagement is the reason we're here. I think it's important for us to maybe continue on with the agenda, because I feel like a lot of these conversations will be moved forward through understanding the bylaws. And I would like to talk to Dave offline about your organization document.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I would just say that community engagement is a piece of what we're doing. I don't think it's the focus. I don't think that's the purpose of a commission. I think the commission as a group is informed by community engagement, those that are engaged in the community. But fundamentally, we're at a mission level, which is strategic, which is really saying, okay, how are these individual pieces and parts of the perspective across 3 counties, how are those affecting our populations? And
Yes.
we really have to focus
Yes.
at that level. So I'm just circling back to what Paula said. I think that, I'm very much in agreement with Paula on the strategic level. It's at the macro level. And I think we'd be wise to continue down that road.
Perfect. I appreciate these conversations.
Just one more comment with membership. I think in the past, people have been handpicked or targeted to be asked onto the commission. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be more conducive to have like a general, ad somewhere, whether it's Facebook or wherever, call for commissioners with application and vetting of memberships. It's been kind of handpicked and not really getting a sample of the people that are out there that are being overlooked because people are just being handpicked. So that's another thought, and I'll shut up.
Well, I just quickly, sorry. So I chair the state coalition for Colorado Coalition for Elder Rights and Abuse Prevention, and we're equally trying to get sort of representation statewide, et cetera, in our recruitment strategies. And we've done just that, where we created a flyer and solicited sort of interest into serving on the steering committee. So if I could share materials that could help your effort or the membership committee effort to streamline some things, I'd be happy to do that.
Love that. Thank you, Dave.
I think that also helps with bandwidth to a certain extent. I think it makes it a more inclusive pool, and I think they can help a lot with those issues of feeling like you know, you're individually contacting within your pool and your resources. I think it's a great idea.
We might need to think about the sequence here. I agree that it's wise and it's probably advisable to go with some sort of an announcement out to the community at large. But it might be that we need to look at the bylaws and figure out, okay, how many members are we shooting for? You know, we could be inundated with another 10 or 15 people and that say, okay, raise their hand, they'd like to be on the commission. But, you know, we should think through how many are we looking to absorb or bring on board. That's part of that bylaw look and or the mission. So just a comment on the sequence.
Great. Melissa, do you mind bringing up the agenda again? Paula, is that good for you with the, okay, perfect. So policy committee, which I am the chair on, ACG legislative committee. Jessica and I are going to be supporting each other with this brief. I have been going to the legislative committee meetings every Monday, keeping a pulse on what is current and relevant in terms of our community issues that we are having a tracking on. Jessica, do you feel comfortable going ahead and presenting? I'm just gonna put B and C together.
I definitely can.
Thank you.
So my intention, part of why I'm here today, is I wanted to just give you guys kind of a quick briefing and make sure everybody knows how PPACG's legislative process works from beginning to end. So if you don't know me yet, Jessica McMullen, I'm Policy and Communications here at PPACG. How the legislative process works at PPACG. The state lobbyist, who's Dan Jablan, myself, and any member of a board, committee, council, anyone involved with PPACG can look for bills that are of interest to the PPACG legislative themes. We produce that document every year in December, and it's approved by the board of directors. And those are the only things we focus on every year. That's what our legislative committee uses to say, nope, not a PPACG issue, or yes, we need to talk about it. So once people bring bills to us, the legislative committee, which is made up of board members, reviews them. They talk about them and they'll take a position on them. Support, oppose, monitor, strongly support or oppose, or just not a PPACG issue and we get rid of it. Sometimes there are very important items that are relevant frequently to older adults, but they're not in a PPACG realm. They don't relate to one of our programs or to something we can influence. So those will be given it's not a PPACG issue. Once the legislative committee has taken a position on a bill, it's a proposed position at that point. They're emailed to all of the PPACG board of directors. The email says, if you have any objections, you have to let me know within 24 hours. Otherwise, these are the assumed positions for our lobbyists to work with. If we hear any objections, our lobbyist gets told you can't say anything about this bill, and it comes up at the board meeting for discussion. The board of directors then either gives us a just stamp of approval, confirming their positions at the board meeting, or we have a discussion on any bills that have been brought up as an issue. That's how the legislative process works for PPACG. Any bill that a PPACG committee, anybody who's going to use the word PPACG in their presentation about a legislative opinion. So if you're going to say, I serve on COA and this is COA's opinion, or on the CAC, or it's got to be what the legislative committee and the board of directors has approved. We do have a website that is lifetime updated. It's not 100% up to date. I'm currently working on fixing that with what bills, where they are, what positions we've taken, and when they're on the calendar.
Jessica, could you touch on how the interests, the priorities, and the emphasis that commissioners have, or elected representatives, or maybe just could be citizens, have for a particular piece of addition or modification to legislation, how that moves, how that is injected into the PPACG? The reason I'm asking is that I just read there's an article in the paper that one of the things I read this morning that talked about there's a need, this person was a lengthy editorial long column, and the woman was talking about there's a need for equity, if you will, or an equitable approach for helping families take care of spouse or aging individuals in the home. And specifically, this letter talked about Medicare and Medicare Advantage, not Medicaid, Medicare and Medicare Advantage. And this person was saying this should be something that needs to be addressed so that there would be financial support for family members that are taking care of somebody else that falls into Medicare or Medicare Advantage. Right now, it's done for Medicaid and for those family members that receive compensation or support, if you will, financial remuneration, but it's not on Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare Advantage. So in something like that, if that were, if that became the pet rock of Commissioner A or Mayor B, how would that get into the things that you do and possibly transfer up to the legislature? How would that happen?
So in the fall of each year, we begin talking about the legislative themes within the legislative committee, and we take feedback from anybody who's interested in participating in those from the board of directors. And we discuss what are the items we see of importance. We look at the strategic plan of PPACG, and we try to find ways that we can align our legislative efforts for the year. That group then brings their draft to the board of directors for them to look at and make edits to, and then they vote on it. So that really is how our positions are established. Information is brought either through me or through a board member or through one of the other staff members that there's this legislative issue.
Okay.
We thus far do not engage in the writing of legislation. Our contract with our lobbyist that's not what it covers right now.
Right. If a commissioner, though, in this particular instance of the Medicare, Medicare Advantage, and some sort of financial compensation for the family members providing long-term care, that could be an advocacy piece that would work through our legislative spokesperson to get to legislator representative X or Senator B to say, hey, this is something that we endorse this type of activity. We'd like to see continued approach. Can you keep us informed, right?
Yep. So what we would do in that case is, again, it would go to the legislative committee for them to say, yes, we believe PPACG would support this. It goes to the board from there for them to say, yes, PPACG supports this. So even if it's not a bill yet, and that's going to be in the fall and over the summer when bills start getting talked about and it's just ideas, the legislative committee would discuss that. Once a position has been taken by the PPACG board of directors, we'd reach out to our local legislators and we'd talk to them. All of our board members would talk to the folks they know for those folks who were interested in the topic. We'd provide information, serve as a resource with anything that we know. We'd be able to pull up the statistics that our area agency on aging sees. An and a great example I can tell you right now is the senior homestead tax exemption has been a really big deal because it's such an issue relating to home affordability as those taxes. One of the major bills on it died. The bill sponsor is allowed to rewrite that bill and re-release it as long as it stays close to the title. Jody Barker is now on his planning group for that to make sure that bill is as best as possible, as much as Jody has a say, because we talked with our legislator about, we supported the bill that died. And now that it's dead, he was like, well, let's bring in some experts. So we get pulled in those kind of ways.
Right.
Does that explain it? Help?
I think it does. I think I have a fairly good understanding, but the other members may or may not, but I think I really do appreciate your taking time to explain this. It's really an important piece, especially from a commission perspective, because I think one of the things that the PPACG board is looking at is saying, okay, commission, you come forward, tell us, give us those thoughts and ideas, the community influence and the priorities and the emphases that should come from the Commission on Aging to the board.
And there's a lot of your bylaws as established really talk about you advising the board of directors on potential advocacy opportunities within legislation.
Which I can speak to, Jessica, sorry.
No, go.
So as Jessica is aware, when I'm on the Monday meetings, for example, if there are bills that are brought to the plate that I feel are particularly relevant to aging issues, as I have explained before, are advocated for, we are all aging, and there's the crosshairs of transportation, medical accessibility, housing affordability. I think it's important to advocate for older adults within those bills. Jessica is aware that I am very active within that. She's laughing. I look towards being a voice as it sees fit. And I think that is an example of how we can, make sure that this committee feels is going through the pipeline as well.
Again, it's a commission. It's a commission, not a committee.
Sorry, commission, thanks, Dave.
It's important.
Well, and as the commission is hearing about issues, you just brought one up that you read about in the paper. If during your Commission on Aging meeting, you guys brought that up and all, moved forward with it. So this is a really important issue. We really need to be engaging on it as PPACG. The first step would be for the commission to look at it and the commission to vote on it. You would need to bring it as an action item. And that would then go through our process, and depending on what the item was, would depend on how we directed it. And we'd help. And if the legislative committee had a lot of questions on it or concerns, a lot of the time what we try to do is schedule a roundtable. We put everyone together and try to figure out how can we make everybody see and get us all on one track. And then the goal would be for us all to be really pulling together. This year is the first year we actually picked legislative initiatives as well as themes. And the three that were selected were senior affordable housing, wildfire mitigation funding, and funding for greenhouse gas emission regulations. Because those are the three major issues we heard about in our fall roundtable with our legislators, that they knew there were going to be bills or there were going to be needs. And those two topics, those two things, knowing that it's going to be happening and that there's going to be a need for it, really can help drive us. So we've been engaging really heavily. Our board we're a flexible organization. So when we started our legislative themes last December, the issue of long-term care and the severity of the impact it's been facing hadn't been brought up to the board. It hadn't been put front and center. And then Jody and Lori brought it up at a board of directors meeting. Immediately, the board was like, okay, this is a big issue. We need to work on it. They scheduled a roundtable with all of our board members. with experts in the field, with people who work there, with people who've had experiences. And we are now strongly supporting and engaging on 2 different bills relating to health facility visitations, and helping make sure that those long-term care facilities are helping people have their families and the other folks come in because of what we heard and what we saw. So we do adjust on the fly. Melissa?
So I guess I kind of wanted to just put out 2 additional pieces of information, kind of complementing what you're saying there, Jessica. I think the first thing is for the commission to hear that, you know, as we've had discussion in executive meetings about kind of timelines and realizing how, you know, we've been trying to understand this balance between the PPACG board and the Commission on Aging, that going forward, kind of late summer, the idea of having a roundtable with the Commission on Aging folks and the PPACG Legislative Committee folks, so that we can be having kind of that more joint conversation about legislative themes, you know, kind of brainstorming and bouncing ideas off of each other face to face earlier rather than later, because, you know, there's going to be conversations happening throughout the summer, you know, where we're going to hopefully hear things around legislation and change that people want to see. And, you know, come December and then January, if we're just now getting involved in those conversations, it's too late. And so there was that reality, you know, kind of looking back saying, oh my gosh, you know, we need to be circling into this, you know, so much sooner. And, you know, the legislative session will be over in the middle of May. And then we all might say, oh, phew, we can take a breath, you know, and move on and talk about other things. But really, we won't be able to. It'll be a continuing kind of awareness of how, you know, policy works and how the commission can be more involved in those advocacy conversations, and be part of it at the beginning of the process instead of kind of jumping in, you know, kind of late in the game, because we're still kind of new to this. And the PPACG as an organization is a pretty well-oiled machine. And, you know, we're trying to figure out, you know, making the, you know, helping the commission fit in and helping PPACG to, you know, remember that the commission is here and, you know, taking advantage of that. And then the second thing I wanted to mention was, I don't remember. And so if it comes back up, I'll put my hand back up. And in the meantime, I'll turn it over to Amy.
Just a quick reaction there would be that I think that's a great idea for some subset of the COA to get together with a legislative PPACG legislative group sometime this summer. I think it's a great idea. And I would recommend that it be the policy subgroup of COA, maybe with the executive committee or something, rather than the entire commission. It's like, okay, it's just too much of a learning curve, I think, to get into that. It really does most properly fit, I think, with that policy subgroup that we have.
And then that made me remember what my second point was, Dave. So thanks. Because the second point was, as we're seeing, things are happening quickly. And, you know, Mei Ling has a full-time job, and she has been attending those advocacy or the policy meetings with AAA or with PPACG every week. And we said at the beginning, we wanted one person to be attending that for continuity's sake. So we still want to keep that. We don't want to have lots of people jumping into that meeting. But so I'm grateful for the commissioners who are spending so much time on this, because it really is a lot, but it's also important. And then along those lines, because things are happening quickly, sometimes it's hard to trickle it down to the whole commission. And so as Jessica mentioned, and you know, that Dave hears and sees a great story and says, oh, I want to bring this to the commission and let's have a conversation about it. And so the first month you have a conversation about it, and then the next month you vote on it. But then possibly 3 months have gone by and all kinds of legislation has already happened. And so at some point, we as a commission need to figure out a quicker process with that. And one of the realities with the PPACG board, as Jessica also mentioned, is the legislative committee will put something out to that full PPACG board and say, you have to get back with us with a response by 5 o'clock on Wednesday night, and that's 2 days or something. And so part of being on the commission, as I'm wrapping my mind around doing an onboarding for Dayton, we may have to have some things that, like during the legislative session, be prepared, that you could, an email could go out with information and people need to be looking at it. And Mei Ling, as the chair of the advocacy committee, says, here is this, legislation. And, I'm going to say that maybe the commission would want to support it. And so please read and get back with Mei Ling by such and such time. I don't want to have deep discussion about this. I just want to throw it out there as something to, get people's brains working around the fact that, ideally, the agenda would be discuss and then vote next month. But during the legislative session, it just goes so quickly. We don't have enough time to do that. And so we do need a process that is going to work, and we can continue to massage that definitely at another time. But just wanted to get those 2 points out. And then I see Amy's got her hand up. So I'll pass it on to Amy.
Yes, Melissa, thank you. And thank you, Jessica. You spoke what I was going to speak of. At the speed the legislative session goes, a process to support legislation that has been proposed that really wasn't in the wind earlier prior to the start of the session, or a process to oppose something that is contrary to our goal and mission of advocacy. So I think something, because, I've witnessed bills introduced, gone to the both houses and put through in 2 to 3 weeks without any time to breathe or discuss or to have a monthly meeting pass for discussion. So some kind of process like that, I would be totally up for. We're used to having to move at a very fast rate during the legislative session, and then we can have more policy and focus and what we've learned over the session that we can then bring to the table in the summer to prepare for the next one. So thank you very much for bringing that up.
So I would like us to continue to move forward. I think that we have a lot of really robust discussions, but for the sake of time, I know we have a couple other agenda items. The only other thing I would like to piggyback off of this is I think that as we continue to massage and move forward and look through the bylaws, I think that we will start to figure out a system that makes everyone feel comfortable and that we are a unified mission and voice. So as we have discussed, when we are starting to work through legislation and bills that have a fast pace, we can be a well-oiled machine and decide a system that makes sense for us within our capacity and bandwidth. So I think that as we continue to work through these discussions, we will find a system that makes sense.
And if anyone at any time, if you've got legislative questions or concerns or a bill that you want to know if we've looked at, you can email me whenever. And I'll let you know if we have and what's going on with it, or see if it's something we want to take on and let you know. We want to be here for you. Work hard at it.
Thank you again, Jessica. I think that anybody that's been at the PPACG for more than a couple of days knows that you're doing a really good job. Thank you.
Perfect. Jessica, did you have any other thoughts on current bills that we're tracking that are related to aging? Or are we ready to move to the next item?
I think you're ready to move to the next. I'll give you some more information at the legislative committee with the rest of the legislative committee meeting, and you can spread that out to any folks who are interested.
Let me one last comment on this whole policy thing and legislation. Legislation is really it's a role beyond us. It really is, from a commission, my view. I think it's beyond the commission to have any sort of a real-time interaction with it. I think tracking it is fine. Getting updates on this, that, and the other thing is fine. But as far as trying to follow the day-to-day, month by month, hour by hour, if this happened, whatever, that is not our role. I think that the policy focus that we have really is on those macro issues that Paula talked, that we've identified, housing, transportation, affordable housing, transportation. I forget what the third one is, but at that level, that's where we bring in that a little bit more of a, a seasoning, if you will, and an issue. And that's when we begin to help influence and shape the discussion that might ultimately get to a legislative piece. But, we're not on that legislative roller coaster. We can't possibly maintain any sort of timeliness with it. So it's, again, 2 cents from Dave.
Perfect.
So hold on, I do want to comment on that just a little bit. So Dave, I think that the commission is a little bit on that because the PPACG board is wanting to hear from the commission on legislation that's currently happening. And so it is a roller coaster. And I think that, looking forward, as we move into the summer after the legislative session closes and we have some better processes in place to work on strategy, to work on ideas around advocacy, we'll hopefully be ahead of the ball. Like right now, when the PPACG Legislative Committee with Jessica McMullen and then Mei Ling sitting there, start to say things about older adults, and the commission has a voice there to say, this is something that we see, this is what we hear, this is a topic that we think is important to the serving older adults in the community better. So I do think that there is a role for this. It's just understanding and hopefully this summer getting ahead of the curve on things that the commission feels that they're going to advocate for and be ahead of the game on it. But then even once the legislative session starts, there's going to be times where the legislative committee with Jessica McMullen and our advocacy chair hears about something that pops up. And I can't imagine that the commission would not want to be at least informed that the PPACG elected officials are thinking about taking a stand on something without actually, making sure that the commission does know that this is happening and being talked about. So, because I think that's what's kind of caused some of the trouble along the way is that, there's a disconnect. And so trying to get it more, working together is the goal. So I hope that makes sense, Dave. If it doesn't, I really want you and I to talk more about that.
I think the key there is that we've heard very, it's been well defined, well laid out by Jessica on the legislative process. We don't have a process. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to, figure out, okay, we got to get into this process over here. We got to do this, but there's nothing on our side first that says, okay, how do we take the 6 or 12 different major issues that are out there on any given hour, day, whatever it is, and figure out what's large enough or a high enough priority or emphasis that we can take an action on that and say, okay, now we want to stay with this issue. I'm not disputing the need to follow legislation, but we don't want to be reactive. I think that the commission at the macro level is really trying to say, okay, let's help steer the conversation to those macro issues that are pernicious, that are persistent, that intractable, all those types of things. But that's the thing where the commission can be very, I think, effective in presenting to the PPACG board. It doesn't have to be a legislative thing. It doesn't have to be advocacy. It says, okay, here's a priority that this commission has agreed to for this period of time, for this year, for whatever it may be, and put those things out there. And I think that then becomes something that is, what's the word, measurable. It's a metric, if you will, whether it's a letter, whether it's a presentation, whether it's whatever. But that's where the commission, I think, has real value.
So Dave, I think that it's really important, as we mentioned, we are going to circle back in on the bylaws. So I think that I totally hear what you're saying. That's important for us to keep ourselves accountable and measure our success. But I think that it's also important when we look at the reason the commission was made is to hear the voices of our community, specifically as it's impacting aging. So I don't think that we should pigeon ourselves into saying that we're not going to be listening to current legislative issues because that is impacting our community. We're not going to feel like it's necessarily a bandwidth opportunity. We need to keep our eyes and ears open because that's the reason we were created and that's the mission of our organization. And I feel that when we go back to the bylaws, a lot of these questions and concerns will be made, will present themselves. We will understand them further, but I don't think that we need to hold ourselves to a certain measurement because we are here to hear the voices of our older adult community, our aging community. I think that that is the standard we're holding ourselves to specifically for this meeting. And then when we look at the bylaws, we can continue to have further discussions on how we want to move forward strategically and thoughtfully. So
I think we're in violent agreement.
perfect. That's fantastic. I like violent agreement. So Melissa, 5D, how would you like to move forward with that?
So at this point, I don't think we have anybody prepared to give a chair report. So, and I'm trying, yeah. So I think we're okay to, and then we don't have Jody here.
Okay.
So
I would say we should probably have a short discussion at least about some sort of recognition, acknowledgement that she has departed, and thank her for the time that she did and time and effort that she has put into it. And I think that's an appropriate thing from the commission, whether it's a letter, whether it's a plaque, whatever, you know, but there has to be something, I think, that recognizes that lots of time and effort went into this. So I think that's what we really do owe Alyssa as well. Anybody that leaves, I think that's an important piece.
thanks, Dave. Very good comment.
So is this going to be an action then that we're going to do?
So when people have kind of finished their term, we send certificates of appreciation out to folks.
Right.
And so we can do that with Elisa for sure. So, and send that off and get that to her.
Thank you. I think that's a good idea. Not because I came up with it, but
But you know.
And so we don't have 6A available, correct, Melissa?
No.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think, I did not attend the board meeting, so I really can't comment on things that were shared at that board meeting because I was not there. So.
Okay.
Um,
So I guess we're on a calendar right now.
Yeah.
Melissa, did you want to?
So just a reminder that, you know, we do have our next meeting, April 20th. And then if anyone wants to attend the executive committee meeting coming up, it'll be on April 4th. So April 4th at 11 o'clock, it is a Zoom meeting. So if anyone wants to attend that meeting, please send me an email and I can give you the invite for that. As we do just kind of formalize in that executive meeting about the leadership and, you know, where things are headed and going forward. That committee also comes up with the agenda and agenda items. So just so you know. And then the advocacy committee, you know, Claire Mei-Ling has been attending the PPACG meetings. And so that kind of has taken over that other time. But as we actually get a few more members on, and hopefully there could be a formal committee that then again, that might help with our processes, where if there's a committee of COA members, as Dave kind of mentioned, that with this roundtable, if the committee goes instead of the whole Commission on Aging. So looking forward to that conversation at the executive committee. I have that down as talk about. I do want to mention this coming Friday at, I think, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And this is where other people can chime in if they know of events happening throughout the region, which I think possibly Amy Mitchell might share something about which most of you guys already know, but it's always fun just to bring it up again. The Park County Senior Coalition having an event on Thursday. I don't know, Amy, do you want to mention that while I'm pulling up my event for Friday?
Absolutely, I'm happy to. We are going to have a senior coalition event at the Lake George Community Center tomorrow, starting at 11. If Mon Nature allows anyone to travel from really long distances, we're looking at maybe 6 to 10 inches of snow in the Lake George area. So, but we are not going to cancel. We're going to have corned beef and cabbage in honor of St. Patrick's Day. And I think we're going to have a pretty good turnout. We've had a lot of RSVPs. I am planning on being there if I can get out of my half-a-mile long driveway. And we will look forward to see anyone who can attend.
Great. And I know that I had sent out an email to both the RAC and the commission, just kind of reminding people of that if anybody wanted to carpool. So that's out there for people. And then the event that I was looking up, the Alzheimer's Association is hosting an event for kind of best care practices at Silver Key on Friday from 4 to 5. And so kind of an opportunity if you know a caregiver who needs a little extra boost, or people who don't even realize they're caregivers and need a little extra boost around understanding Alzheimer's, dementia, just getting some extra support. And then I'll let Dayton bring up what he put into the chat.
Thank you, Melissa. So Silver Key is holding a senior summit on June 15th at the Antlers downtown. That'll start from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and I'll be happy to share a flyer with the group. But it's in partnership with the Pikes Peak Senior News, where we look to have a morning benefit breakfast with the proceeds supporting area seniors. The days come and go as you please. Experience will then continue with expo vendors, health screenings, valuable information sessions, raffle prizes, giveaways, refreshments, etc. So we're looking for a big bash downtown then, and we are in the midst of looking for some keynote speakers on some key topics that are relevant to the field of aging and some of the trends that we're seeing in the space. So if you're interested or have any ideas in terms of topics or speakers, please send them my way. But if you're free on the 15th, I look forward to seeing you then.
And Dayton, you said you're going to send us all a flyer on that? Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Any other announcements?
Yeah, I got a couple. So who's on the executive committee? I know it's changing now since Alyssa's not there, but who is on the executive committee?
So it will be Paula Levy, myself, Melissa, who else is on the?
That's it. So it's the chair, the vice chair, and any of the committee chairs. And so since Mei Ling was holding both the vice chair and the chair of the advocacy committee, Paula is the chair of membership. So it's a tight group, and we will need to look at bringing in another vice chair into our leadership. So that'll be, the work of the executive committee talking about that, and then bringing it to the commission at the April meeting. So yeah, it's just literally that executive group of folks that are kind of doing the work behind the scenes in between meetings.
Okay, two thoughts or two notes then. So a comment again, I think that the Zoom is very useful in many instances. I think at some point, sooner rather than later, it would be a wonderful thing for us as a group to start meeting in person. I think that we have a chance to really figure out and get a sense that, oh, you know, this person doesn't have horns, this person doesn't have 4 eyes, this person is really a normal person, whatever it is, to build that understanding and that relationship. I think it's critical for a commission, especially with the variety and the geographies and the intergenerational stuff. I think it's critical we do that. We can do business until the cows come home on Zoom, and we'll feel like, okay, we're making progress, but I don't think we really do unless we have that real meeting of the minds face to face. I see your face, you see my face, you hear the words, you see the emotion. Those are all really important things. I'll stop on that one. The last thing, Andy Gunning is coming up here to Monument on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock for our Northern El Paso County Coalition of HOAs. It's called NEPCO. So I invited him up here, and he will be speaking about the PPACG, about transportation, about seniors, about development in the sense of community development, all these transportation, roads, all of the things that the PPACG has a role in playing, at least to some extent. Andy's going to sort of have his 35-40 minutes to talk about that. Then he'll be on the barbecue as the questions come up for him to try to grapple with. So that's coming up here on Saturday. I'll give you a report back on that once the meeting's over.
Dave, what's the name of the entity?
NEPCO.
The Northern El Paso County.
Yeah, just think NEPCO, Northern El Paso County, NEPCO. And
But
we're working on trying to get I'm working on trying to get a brand, a message, sharpen the message, the mission, a whole bunch of different things. The organization's been around for 20 years, and everybody, you ask them, what's a NEPCO? Nobody knows. Doing good things, but we have to get it changed. So
I thought I missed something in there, like commission or something on
it's a
HOA.
coalition of HOAs.
Okay, the
There
coalition.
are 47 HOAs, homeowners associations in Northern El Paso County that belong, nominal dues. It's 9,000 properties. It's over 20,000 residents are represented. So it's not an insignificant organization. It's not political, but the focus is on smart development, quality of life, resilience, safety, survivability of the residents due to the wildfire. So the focus is on 3 things: water, land, transportation, and wildfire. And smart development, trying to be on the front end to advise the HOAs. Gee, this is a geographic thing that's happening in your area. You should be aware of this, and here's how you can influence the discussion or the development. So that's on Saturday at 10 o'clock. We meet monthly. Go ahead. I'm done.
Great. So unless there's any other comments, it looks like we are short and sweet. Items for next meeting. Melissa, how do I move forward on that?
So really, I think one of the primary things is just bringing in the vice chair, and yeah, and probably some more membership conversations as those will evolve over the month. But we don't have any action items or anything for sure there, but definitely we'll be looking at vice chair at the next meeting.
Great.
And also, if we have any discussion by email about anything legislatively that's happening, maybe bring it up as a old business, but something that needs to be consolidated into, meeting material.
Great, thanks for that, Tiffany. So, Melissa, am I okay to go ahead and adjourn at 4:11? Perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your support through my first bumblings thank you, Melissa, for your guidance. And I appreciate everyone. I look forward to us having continued conversations. And also, yes, thank you, Melissa, for that. Claire, thank you for your comments. And thanks all. Looking forward to continue the momentum. Have a great rest of your day.